Welcome back, World History. We are on, our topic is World War II right now. We left off with the aggressive nature of those totalitarian fascist regimes. Okay. We saw Germany expand its borders. We saw Italy claiming empire. We saw the revolution, the Civil War leading to the fascist takeover in Spain over here. Okay, we saw Japan claiming empire. The next topic, why did Hitler hate the Jews so much? I'm going to let you investigate a little bit. This is normally something I spend quite a bit of time on at school, and we read quite a few documents. Unfortunately, we'll have to maybe pick up some of that next year in US. Uh, if you are interested in it, um, talk about Hitler's propaganda and indoctrination. Here is a photo of a German youth. Okay, Hitler's youth, German youth. He had one for boys and one for girls. Was a way to indoctrinate the kids. Okay, with his ideals. You can also see more if you want to go on YouTube and you can type in these various titles: "The Century," "Stormy Weather," and "Over the Edge." I've even marked the times for you. You can watch a little bit about Hitler's use of the Big Five. A couple definitions that you'll need to know for sure. Anti-Semitism is the hatred of Jews. Okay, so anytime you hear anti-Semitism or the person is an anti-Semite, they are against Jews. Kristallnacht will be the first violence, organized violence against Jews. That's Night of the Broken Glass, and this is all pre World War II. So World War II hasn't broken out yet. 1939. Okay, well, we won't be doing the timeline of events. All right, so let's get to the beginning of the war here. World War II, as I just stated, began in 1939, and that is when Hitler launches Blitzkrieg. Okay, Blitzkrieg literally translates into lightning war. It's a fast invasion. I'll explain that in a second. Hitler has felt empowered and bold because of the lack of enforcement by the League of Nations. He knows it's weak. He's already taken several steps to expand his empire, and nobody's done anything but a slap on the wrist. We have the failure of appeasement. Um, so basically, Hitler feels there will be no consequences. He launches Blitzkrieg while invading Poland. Okay, Blitzkrieg was basically your infantry, your soldiers who could move and march quickly, and they were supported by aircraft in the air and tanks on the ground. Okay. That was September 1st, 1939, and incidentally, Poland was where Great Britain and France had drawn the proverbial line in the sand. They said, if you do invade Poland, we will have to declare war. And that's exactly what they did 2 days later. The next 6 months or so is known as the Phony War because Hitler had invaded Poland. Great Britain and France declare war on Germany, but nobody really does anything. Okay, everybody's kind of mobilizing their troops, getting ready for the big war, etc., etc. Meanwhile, Hitler invades a whole bunch of other countries in Europe, creating his new Reich, his new empire. Okay, so speaking of his empire, if we look at Europe, anything red is either Nazi or a Nazi ally, right? Because Mussolini is here in Italy, and the rest is where Hitler had invaded. So he has quite a European empire. Um, the Nazis move into France, take Paris. Uh, uh, Charles de Gaulle is forced into exile. He jumps over here into England. Charles de Gaulle was the French general, and he will fight the Nazis from Great Britain. You have a part of France, the southern part right here, which is called Vichy France, and that's a puppet government that answered to Hitler, basically under his control, led by Marshal Philip Pétain. The Battle of Britain. Winston Churchill is the prime minister. The Battle of Britain was Hitler's attempt at invading Great Britain. He knew that in order to send troops over there, he would have to first soften it by air. So he used the Luftwaffe, German Air Force, and the Battle of Britain was 76 continuous nights of bombing by the Germans. Let's see here. The British were able to resist this. I mean, obviously the city was ruined, but they had two advantages now in World War II that they didn't have in World War One. We had radar, technological advantage, so we knew when the British knew when airplanes were coming, and the second was Enigma. The Allies had smuggled a German code making machine in without the Germans knowing. So the Allies were able to decode some of their messages. Okay, I'm moving quick through World War One. North Africa, this region up here, will be a battle zone. Okay, this was all about controlling. Don't forget the Suez Canal. Oh, sorry, Suez Canal over here. And this was a strategic location, which is why the Germans wanted it. North Africa had been taken over by General Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox. He leads the Africa Corps. The other place of significance is that old Balkan region up here that we talked about in World War One. Hitler persuades Bulgaria, Romania, and Hungary to join in on the side of the Axis power, so he gains a few allies. It was basically join us or perish. As Yugoslavia and Greece refused, Hitler just invaded them and conquered them. Operation Barbarossa. Let's not forget that in 1939, Hitler and Stalin. You saw this in Stalin's documentary. Hitler and Stalin sign a non-aggression pact. Right? You don't attack me, I don't attack you. And Hitler led Stalin to believe that they would split Poland, the territory they had lost after World War One. But really, what Hitler was doing was just postponing Stalin's involvement in World War II. Hitler knew that he wanted to move this way for more Lebensraum, right, living space, and he wanted to take out all the Jews in the Soviet Union. The Soviets were caught off guard because, if you recall from the documentary on Stalin, he had committed a purge on his military generals, so he had very inexperienced people. Germans pushed some 500 miles into the Soviet Union. The Russians respond similar to Napoleon, using a scorched earth strategy. Hitler ends up trying to starve out Leningrad. They would not surrender. He tried to starve out Stalingrad upon Stalin's orders. Nobody would surrender. I mean, several years, the people starved and froze to death. It was a battle of the wills between Hitler and Stalin. Hitler orders no retreat. They're sitting there in summer boots, summer uniforms, and the Russian winter comes in. It cost Hitler some 500,000 German lives. All right, so World War II begins 1939, but the United States does not become involved until 1941. So we got to see how that happened. In the 30s, the United States was trying desperately to stay out of European problems. They did not want to get sucked into another war. So in 1935 to 1937, they had the Neutrality Acts. The Neutrality Acts basically said that we could not sell weapons or lend money to any nation at war, trying to keep us out of choosing a side and being seen as an enemy. Uh, by 1939, FDR, our president, could see that we're going to need to help the Allies and that Hitler was a major threat. So they start to chip away at the neutrality acts, and we come up with okay, we could sell weapons if you pay cash and you carry them on your own. No U.S. ships involved. By 1941, we had chipped away at the neutrality acts even more, and it said, look, we can lend or lease any weapons or supplies to any country that was vital to the United States. As a matter of fact, the United States Navy even began escorting ships carrying U.S. arms. FDR and Churchill kind of had what we call today a bromance. They were really good friends, and they pledged to each other to defeat Hitler. This was called the Atlantic Charter. All right. So how did the United States end up getting involved? Well, you probably have some prior knowledge, and you know that it was the attack on Pearl Harbor that eventually brought us into war. That attack didn't come out of nowhere. Okay, it had been developing. Japan, being a swinging towards a totalitarian nation, had a wanted to expand. We saw that in the last segment, Pacific Empire. Um, uh, 1940, the United States had cracked a Japanese secret code. We knew they wanted an empire, and we were a little nervous because we had, remember, colonized the Philippine Islands and Guam. So we were just kind of waiting and ready for Japan to come and take those. Japan was also not happy that the United States sent aid to China because let's not forget, China and Japan were in a war. It's because Japan had invaded China and we helped China. Isoroku Yamamoto is Japan's greatest naval strategist. He's the organizer of the attack on Pearl Harbor. That attack, we'll get into this more next year in U.S., but the United States had cut off a lot of trade with the Japanese, and when we had finally cut off oil, that was kind of like the last draw. Okay, Japan's surprise attack came December 7th, 1941. And within 2 hours, the Japanese had sunk or damaged 19 ships, 188 aircraft, 2,400 U.S. Military servicemen were killed, 1,200 wounded. And from there, it was a no brainer. Congress quickly accepted FDR's request for a declaration of war on Japan. And once we declare war on Japan, we're in it in Europe as well against Germany and Italy. Okay, so it was the attack on Pearl Harbor that pulls the United States in. All right, we'll stop there and pick up on the next episode.